Good evening everyone, and welcome to this week's Ask Paul Live, my weekly Q&A for residents of Hunslet and Riverside, where I take your questions live on Facebook. As ever, we'll start with just a very quick kind of overview and some updates from me about the ward for about 5 minutes. I'll then go through some of the questions I've received in advance, and then I'll start taking some of your questions from the live feed. So it has been a very busy week. You've probably seen quite a lot of announcements come out by a variety of sources, myself, the council, the government, etc. So I think some of the kind of headline figures for your announcements. Brown bin collections restart again from Monday. You should have all received by now, if you have had a change in the date of your brown bin collection, a letter through the post. They've been landing today and yesterday. Also, you can check that out on the council's website or the council's bin app. There will be an extension of some brown bin routes, and there will be reorganisation just to try and prevent as many missed opportunities for collections as possible. Really kind of important announcement today in relation to crematoriums and chapels. Again, this is on my Facebook, and it has been announced that services are starting to resume, and we will from I think looking at this report, I think it's the first week of June, be looking to reopen our crematorium, chapels and grounds. Again, there's much more information on my Facebook, I think a post or two just before this about that specific information. You've also probably heard the council's announcement on its position on school openings. This is also the case for childcare and early years nurseries. The council has taken the position, which the government seems now to also be taking, that we will not be insisting on any schools opening. To be fair, we don't have the power to do that anyway. What we have done is provide some comprehensive risk assessments for schools to assess whether or not they can open safely and to give them some guidance. I think the honest answer is we're probably going to see a very patchy reopening of primary schools across the city. Some of the more modern buildings probably being able to open in what we call bubbles. This is where we have the classes segregated from other classes, and some of the older primary school buildings not in such a great position to facilitate social distancing. Another big thing to make you aware of is around obviously transport. The bus service, particularly First Bus, has announced how it's looking to protect passengers and its staff as we go back into some form of normality for work for some professions. I think the big important thing here is to stick to the government's message that where possible to avoid public transport. Capacity will be down to only a tenth of what it normally would be on our major bus routes, as the buses try to obviously make sure people are social distancing. In terms of the business discretionary scheme, which is a grant that was released a couple of weeks ago, the council still hasn't finalised exactly how that will work in practice. We got some government guidance about 3 or 4 days ago, and officers for those small businesses, and I know we've got a lot of small businesses in this ward, we're hoping to have that guidance out hopefully at the beginning of next week. Bulk waste collections start from next week again, so you should now be able to start booking some bulk waste collections from the council's website from Monday. These will be free for the moment until we're out of the pandemic situation, so please do utilise that, because I know we have had quite a bit of fly tipping. And finally, on just some kind of broad announcements. Litter bins, we are now proactively collecting litter from litter bins, and we won't be sealing off any future litter bins. If there are some litter bins which are overflowing, please do let me know and we will get those cleared ASAP. But we are going back to normal litter bin collection routines over the next week or so, so you should start seeing those litter bins being cleared. We are asking just for your support though to try and not use them where possible until we get back up to full kind of working. So that is my kind of quick update. So I'm just going to spend about 5-10 minutes going through some of the questions I've been sent in advance, and then I can already see that we've got some questions coming through already on the live feed, which I will pick up afterwards. So some of the questions we've got this week, one was around when housing lets are going to restart for the council. Now that the government has indicated that the rental sector and the house buying and selling sector can restart. We're literally just working through those proposals now. We want to make sure it's done in the safest possible way. Do know there's been a lot of frustration that the Leeds City Council housing system has been put on hold. I was asked yesterday whether or not people's bandings will be extended by the amount of time the process has stopped for. I have asked that question, not got a response yet, but I am picking that up. My assumption is we will probably extend the length of time people can have their bandings without having to renew. We've done that for a variety of other areas of the council around things like private taxi licensing, so we've extended stuff automatically. I'm assuming that will be the case, but I will get a proper answer for that because I know it's quite worrying for a lot of people who are looking to move into council properties at the moment. I got a question around road sweeping because quite a lot of our non-major roads haven't been swept for a while. We haven't been given a definite date when non-major roads will start to have their proactive road sweeping rota brought back in. We are expecting, or should I say I'm expecting, it will probably be sometime next month once we've got the full bin operation back up and running, because a lot of our drivers from the Cleaner Neighbourhoods teams have been helping to support the refuge teams, particularly around driving to make sure we can continue to collect people's bins. The fact that we're getting back to kind of full service in the waste refuge service suggests that we're probably very near the point where we'll start to do those Cleaner Neighbourhood things with the road sweepers. One of the other questions I got as well, which is a bit of a weird one, was around, well, it's not a weird one, it's people keep asking, are we still allowing free parking at Leeds City Council parking bays and car parks? The answer is yes. It is still free for the moment. We are asking people to obviously prioritise NHS workers and key workers if they're indicating that they are, but our parking facilities are still free. We are, however, ticketing as a council for parking violations now, so you will have seen the wardens going around, but if you are parked in a Leeds City Council parking bay at the moment, you're not going to get ticketed. You're going to get it if you have any parking infringements. So they were the questions I got in advance. Didn't actually get that many in advance this week because I think everybody tuned in for Hillary's Q&A with me yesterday, which went down quite well. So let's just have a look at the live feed and see what questions I have here. So Paul, let's have a look at your question. Yeah, Paul, I think Paul's question, for those that haven't seen, is around how do we expect people not to interact, children to interact and say 2 metres per hour. And I think this comes to the crux of the problem with the school opening regime. For some schools that have very large playgrounds and they have a number of staff willing to come in, they're probably going to be able to manage that. But even then, it's still going to be difficult. I think anyone that's got kids or nieces and nephews know how hard it can be to control them when you want them to stay in one place. I think this will be deeply challenging for teachers, and I think this is why the government's kind of mandatory date of, or what was a mandatory date of, the 1st of June was never going to be feasible. I think the honest answer is, Paul, we generally don't know how it's going to get managed. I do know the governor of a couple of schools where I'm a governor, this is a raging debate at the moment about whether or not they open based on this. How do we maintain social distancing? How do we make sure that the children maybe don't pick up the virus and then pass it on to maybe more vulnerable adults? It's a really difficult spot. I don't think anyone has got an answer, and I think anyone who thinks that we're going to be in a position to stop children who've probably not seen their friends for 9-10 weeks from trying to see each other is probably a little naive. I think it's much easier in the classroom. I do think the playground's going to be a particular problem. Okay, so let's see if there's any other questions. So no other questions on the live feed yet, so I'm just going to check to see if I have any other questions via something else. So let's just have a look at WhatsApp. So yeah, I have had a question on WhatsApp around the canal and social distancing. So the River Aire and the canal obviously go through the centre of this ward, and we do obviously have a lot of residents that live there, H2010 around Leeds Dock. Now, in terms of the canal, social distancing we do know is quite hard. I have referred this on to both the Canals and Riverside Trust and onto the Council's River Warden to see what we can do. We do know we have a couple of choke points where actually it's almost impossible to social distance and how that's going to be managed. Canals and Riverside Trust are in a hard spot. A lot of the canal is public right of way, so there's a legal obligation, a legal right to access it, and there are particular points where it's going to be problematic. We just don't know the answer yet, but we're asking those questions. I think that also comes on to the question about social distancing in the city in general. The council is doing a lot of work right now. Nearly, I think it's about 9,000 suggestions have now been given around places where we need to extend path widths and cycle lanes on a temporary or permanent basis to maintain social distancing. There is a website where you can put your suggestions on. Hunslet doesn't seem to have a lot of suggestions, which I'm slightly concerned about, so I'm going to be trying to plug that in the next few days around that, because we do have a lot of older or more vulnerable people in Hunslet and on Beeston Hill, so we do need to make sure we get this right in those areas as well, because social distancing is going to be really important if we try and control this virus as we get back to some form of normality. Simon, let's have a look at your question. So yes, Simon, so what we've been told, Simon, about social distancing is that effectively they're going to be asking people to sit on the window side of the bus so that they have the widest possible space between seats. That should be evenly distributed around the bus. Where it's things like a double-decker, that there should be some form of regular cleaning of things like handrails, etc. First and Arriva have come out and said they do want all passengers to wear face masks, simply again just to try and make sure, because it's a contained space, that the driver's protected as well as passengers. And basically one of the big issues that is being raised is around capacity, because if they only can take 1 in 10 passengers they normally would do, there's potentially going to be a lot of key workers who reasonably cannot walk to work or cycle to work, who may be literally stuck out waiting for a bus to come that they can go on. I think there's going to be a lot of capacity issues, and there's going to be a lot of complaints and problems, because actually realistically about a third of this city, I think the city relies, maybe more than a third of the city relies on public transport, particularly the bus service, to get to work. And many of those are our key workers, the more lower paid members of our society who are doing those vital jobs in cleaning and catering, refuge, as well as some of the more slightly better paid higher echelons of the medical profession. So it is a big concern. Let's have a look. Is there anything else? I'm just going to have a quick check of a couple of things. Just while I'm scanning for a few questions, one of the big things I am interested in, you've probably seen this quite a bit on my Facebook and social media for the last couple of weeks, is around where you want new litter bins. I'm very keen that when we do get out of this, we try and keep the ward much cleaner than it was. So if any of you do have any ideas of where you would like a litter bin, please do put it into the live feed. I've got a very long list of suggestions. Okay, I've got a WhatsApp question. Will I be doing other Q&As with Hillary? So yesterday we did a special answer and question session with Hillary, the local MP. The video is on my Facebook for anyone who wants to pick up on that. Hillary has agreed to do more. We're going to agree a frequency of that, simply for the fact that obviously he needs to work with his diary. He's obviously down in Westminster doing his job as the local MP. But he did enjoy doing it yesterday. He found it quite nice to not know what some of the questions were and have to think on his feet. So Hillary will be returning. There will be other Q&As as well. I'm just confirming who's going to do the one in 2 weeks' time, which will be on the environment and climate change, and that will be one of my two senior councillor colleagues, either Councillor Neil Walshaw or Councillor Lisa Mulheron, who is the executive member for climate change, transport and planning. One of the things I'm also going to be launching, because this has actually been requested, I'm just figuring out the practicalities, is face-to-face surgeries again. So at the moment we can't do face-to-face surgeries because of obviously the issue of social distancing. But what I am looking at being able to do is basically this, have an appointment system where people can book in and have their one-to-one advice surgery with me via, it won't be Facebook Live, but via a closed Zoom conversation, etc. So I am looking to work how that works in practice, and hopefully that will be something we can look to do. So let's have a look. I've not had any more questions on Facebook, so I'm just going to have a look on something else. So yeah, someone sent me a Facebook message around ice creams. Are ice cream vans allowed to be serving ice cream? I thought they were banned. So they were. Until I think yesterday, it was not legal for an ice cream van to be selling ice cream. The council has announced that in line with the government's guidance we are relaxing that. So people are allowed now to purchase an ice cream from an ice cream van. The proprietor of the van must be following social distancing guidelines set by the government and the council, and where people feel that they are not doing so, then it would be an environmental health matter. So please let the council know, and we'll have a word with the purveyor of the ice cream van to make sure they are following those rules. But as the weather gets hot, we appreciate people like ice creams. If you've been on a diet, it's probably not the greatest thing in the world to potentially hear the ice cream vans are back, but you know, each to their own. Let's have a look at anything else come through yet. Just while I'm actually here waiting for this again, was anyone watching Hillary's question and answer session last night? If you were, what were your thoughts on that? That would be great. Hello John, hello Simon, hello. There's quite a few people there actually. Right. What's happening about the parcel thefts at Leeds Dock? So Leeds Dock is on the riverfront. For those who don't know it, it's quite a large residential population. There are some and ongoing issues of basically someone pilfering people's packages. Now I have been in discussions with the police a couple of days ago, and I've had quite a lengthy conversation with them today via email. They did arrest one person about a week ago who was sentenced. Unfortunately, they got a custodial. They didn't get a custodial sentence. They got a deferred sentence for 4 weeks for 12 months. They do have other suspects, however, and they are now talking to the management companies. And I would say to everyone who lives across any kind of secured community in the city where there are communal post boxes, it's really important if your package goes missing that you report it. Just search for West Yorkshire web chat, or West Yorkshire 101 live chat. Report it because the police needs this intelligence so that they can actually catch the people doing it. I mean, some of the stuff that's being nicked is expensive, and no, some of the companies will re-provide it, some won't, some will be asking people to go for their insurance. So I think it's really, really important that if you do have any of your packages stolen and you're in those communal kind of blocks where you have a communal post box, don't rely on someone else to report it because it's making it very hard for me to get the police to do what they need to do. They are aware about it, but the more reports the better. Let's have a look. I had a few more questions. So Sandra, in question to the buses, we don't know the answer yet, is the honest answer from me. It was raised with Hillary last night. It's something that me and Hillary are going to take away and ask. We'll be asking Wyker in terms of what conversations, West Yorkshire Combined Authority, what conversations they've had with the bus companies. I think the bus companies are in a really difficult position because they have a finite number of drivers and a finite number of buses. and though capacity to a certain extent, because they're letting less people on, might mean they can travel quicker, that's only going to get them so much of a gain, because to a certain extent they still also need to tell people when they're going to turn up. So if they start going around the circuit faster, then actually their timetabling goes out and it may cause other issues. But we are asking the question around this. We are also asking the question around this for school buses as well, for as schools come back online, to allow social distancing there. So we don't know the answer yet, but I do have a degree of sympathy for the bus companies, because they don't have more buses and they don't have more staff. I think it's a really, really difficult position for us all to be in, Sandra. Brown bin collections, Phil, restart from Monday. I would suggest that you check the council's website, search engine, brown bin collections Leeds. The dates will be on there. The app's now been updated, and anyone that's had their route change, sorry, their collection day change, because we've done a route review and rationalised some of the routes, you will get a letter through the post. You should have had it now, or you'll have it over the next few days. But they restart from next week, so double check what your new date is. Cheers, Simon and Stuart. I'm glad you found that Q&A really useful last night. Hopefully the future ones that we're going to bring along will be as interesting and useful. I would imagine it gets pretty boring just hearing me every single week. I get bored of my voice every single day. So let's have a look. Anything else come through? Yeah, this one's just come on a messenger to me rather than on the live feed. Some people like to send a message rather than live feed it. Around waste charges. So as I've said, it's at the end of this month it starts, not next week, it's the end of this month. We will be doing bulk waste collections from people's homes again. And as part of that, we will be doing it free of charge. It will be on an appointment basis, like we're doing with everything else pretty much at the moment, until staff numbers are back to normal. But what we have said is we will waiver the charge at the moment, because we appreciate there's been quite a bit of a backlog of waste. And to be fair, fly tipping hasn't actually gone up any more than it happened before. It's just that because we don't have the crews going out in the cage vans picking it up proactively, it looks like there's a lot more. But we do know a lot of people have been doing DIY, etc. So to try and get rid of that backlog and prevent it going out into the public domain, when that does launch at the end of the month, we will be doing that free of charge. It won't be free of charge forever, but it will be for a short time. Let's have a look. Got a question from George. Hi, Paul. Yeah, okay, I have seen this tree quite a few times, George, on Telford Walk, and I had assumed it'd been reported. 4 months, wow. What I'll do is I'll pick that up with forestry and with housing tonight. I'll send them an email. I probably won't get a response till Monday morning, and now because we're in the weekend. Well, sorry, it'll be Tuesday because it's a bank holiday, isn't it? I probably won't get a response until Tuesday, but I had assumed that had been dealt with because it's pretty obvious. Let me pick that up and find out what's going on for you. So apologies for being there for 4 months. It should have been gone within weeks. 4 months is just really not acceptable. Okay, let's have a look. Any other questions anywhere else? Let's look at my emails. When will public events be taking place in parks again? Honest answer, we don't know. We haven't got that guidance from the government yet. The council did release, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, a news update saying that car parks had been reopened in line with the government's advice about unlimited exercise. So council car parks open again. We're planning to open some of our communal facilities like the cafes again, I think within the next week or two. It might be a bit later, I need to check the dates off the top of my head, but they will be for takeaway only. Playground and gym equipment is still completely off limits, because again we can't manage social contact there. But in terms of bigger events, we literally don't know what the government's intentions are. I think it'll very much go along the lines of what's happening with sport, where essentially there may be, as they feel the R rate, the infection rate goes down, they're more comfortable of opening it up with the track and trace system they're trying to develop at the moment. But honest answer, it don't know. Let's have a look. Any other questions? So Phil, the crossing for Pepper Road. So as I've said, obviously we know about the top one. We know about some of the work we're going to do the bottom one. I have forwarded your comments to our highways team to look about what we do about that central point around the Midland road bit. Is it Midland Road, Midland Street, Midland Road, as it goes on to Sussex Avenue. I've not had a response yet because they're quite busy doing the emergency pathway extensions and cycle lanes as part of the social distancing of the current network. But I have raised it and I have asked them to look at what potential solutions. I don't think we'll get a formal crossing there with having a formal crossing at the top of Pepper Road and a formal crossing at the bottom of Sussex Avenue. But I have asked them to see if there is a potential to see if we can get a traffic island, just so that there is a stopping point midway. But until I get that feedback, I can't really give you a full and proper answer, Phil. But the question has been raised. Stuart, I will try and get you a proper date. Leeds City Council bulk waste collections. Get you an answer now. The joys of the internet. Let's have a look. Bulky waste collections, Leeds City Council. Let's see what dates on here for you, Stuart. Book a, right live now actually, so I apologise. So if you do want to book a bulk waste collection, you can actually now do it now. I've got my dates slightly wrong, so go onto their website to search for Leeds City Council bulk waste, and it's right at the bottom. There's an option for bulk collection. Click the link and book your collection. Let's have a look. Anything else that's come through? Where's Peggy? Peggy's downstairs. She has a tendency of running around during these and causing havoc, and she's got into the habit of biting me when I'm on the telephone, which I'm trying to train her out of. So Peggy's very much not in the room while I'm doing these anymore until she behaves. Yeah, Phil. Yeah, Metro House, where and just opposite where the skate park is. So yeah, definitely going to look at that for you because again, I think it's a reasonable request. I have to see what the highways team say, but I will get you a proper response. Even if it's a negative one, I'll get you a proper response. And if it's a negative one I don't agree with, I'll challenge it just to make sure it's appropriate. Okay, I've got a question here about the planning application at Victoria Riverside. So Victoria Riverside is the former Hunslet Mill. I think it's the former Hunslet Mill next to the H2010 development. There was a plan as part of the application to have a retail unit there for a grocer, because there's a lot of people that live in the H2010 development. There's a lot of people that are going to live in Victoria Riverside. The applicant, or developer should say, has put forward a request for us to vary the application, basically change it from a retail unit to 7 flats. The officers are processing that now. I don't know what their response will be. Bearing in mind the sheer volume of objections from local residents, both in the development and the development next door, bearing in mind my quite lengthy objection, bearing in mind Leeds Civic Trust's objection, bearing in mind not a single person has actually put in an actual positive comment, I would hope the planning officers refuse the variation. If they do and it's appeal, well then it'll go to an appeal board and I will speak against it in support of it being rejected. If it's approved by the officers, I will be going to the appeals board, going to the planning board anyway, to ask my fellow council colleagues to reject the officer recommendations. So we are working on that. We've not got a response yet. Normally takes about 10 to 12 days after the closing of comments to get an initial response from the officers. So I will be still doing with that. Let's have a look. WhatsApp question. When will pubs and clubs be open again? I have literally no idea. I think it's, to be fair, pubs and clubs will be the very last to open, just because the very nature is they are very hard to socially distancing. Now, what we have done as a council is allowed a lot of licensed premises that do sell alcohol to have a variation in their license to deliver it. So a lot of the gastro pubs, a lot of the, for example, have gone to takeaway businesses temporarily. So effectively, we've allowed them to become takeaways up till March of next year as a temporary variation. And some of them have put in a variation request to sell alcohol off-site, which we've not really said no to any of them. I've not said no to any in our ward because I think it's only reasonable to keep the businesses going as best as possible. That's also worked for some of the clubs that are just alcohol only. So basically they're doing a kind of like sales business. Some of them are cocktail providers, etc. So they're literally, you order and they deliver. So that's how some of them are surviving. But we don't know. But the government has made a very clear indication they are going to be some of the last places to open, because it's the very nature of a pub and a club. You cannot social distance. So I think that's something off the table for a while for anyone that wants to go down and have a lager or a beer. Let's have a look. Anything else? So no other comments. Yeah, thank you very much for that comment, Phil. I think our bin crews and our cleaner neighbourhood crews have done an absolutely fantastic job. And I think just to give them some recognition, they are touching stuff that everybody else has touched. You know, that puts them in a very high risk group. I think the staff have been absolutely brilliant at following guidance for their own protection. I think the public have been brilliant where possible trying to support them, and I think absolute credit to the bin crews, to the cleaner neighbourhood crews, and actually to all the council staff that have had to go out and do those manual jobs that you just can't do at home. I think they've put themselves at risk for the public good, and I think you know, when I clap on a Thursday, I'm thinking very much of them as I am thinking of anybody else, because they've done an absolute tremendous job. Let's have a look. No other questions there. So yeah, I've got no other questions. So does anyone else? You know, we've got another 13 minutes of this. Any other questions or comments for me, or any ideas or suggestions you have? Anything you would like me to do on your behalf as your counsellor? Because yeah, I don't have all the ideas. Actually, I don't have most of the ideas. I get a lot of my ideas from you guys about what you want me to do. So is there anything else you'd like to ask me while I am here, or any suggestions you've got? Or anything you think I shouldn't be doing? Am I doing something wrong? Because, you know, I'm human like everybody and I get things wrong. So is there anything you'd like me to do different? Or just ask me some more questions, up to you. Let's have a look. Hello Brenda, thank you for joining us. Okay, a question here about the school voucher system. So not all schools have been providing free school meals. Some are, because of their catering arrangements, have not been able to do so. There's a voucher system. The government licensed a French company, Endrand or something like that, to do it. There are still systematic problems with that. What we are saying is anyone that is struggling to get a free school meal for their child, particularly if they have specialist dietary requirements, is get in contact with me. And I will forward that on to Catering Lead, which is our in-house catering team, and we will look to provide for those special dietary requirements. We have had a number of issues of dietary requirements via the emergency food delivery service the council is running as well, and we do now have in place some specialist contract arrangements. The Hamara, based on Beeston Hill, is now providing specialist cultural food arrangements for the city, and I really thank them for stepping up to do that, because again, there are a lot of people that have cultural requirements, and there are also people that have health related dietary requirements. And so, as well as being the food hub for Middleton Park, they've also stepped up to provide the cultural offer as well, so thank you for that. Let's have a look. Got another question. George, let's have a look. Paul, can you let me know what's happening with the big bridge house building opposite Percy Wood Funeral Services? I've been told it's getting made into flats. I've not been told this, and I actually, in fairness, I sent a question to our planning team about this about 2 months ago, and do you know what? I've not chased it up because of everything that's happened. So what I'll do, George, is I'll get onto that tomorrow, actually, because that's my bad, because I come in the kind of chaos that's been going on for the last, organised chaos, but like chaos for the last 8 to 10 weeks. I completely forgot to chase that up, so my apologies. I will ask what's happening with that building. We've not been told of anything that's what we call a major application or variation to a building type. We get told as councillors. The only time we don't is if it's a historic amendment. So they're not changing the use of the building, but they're doing a historic amendment because it goes through a slightly different process. But I will pick that up because I completely forgot to chase that up with planning. So my sincerest apologies. I will deal with that I'll send an email tonight, but I'll deal with it on Tuesday. Find out if they actually had any planning permission. Brenda, yes, I answered this question just before you came onto the live stream. The ice cream vans are now allowed to sell their ice creams and their wares. So it was until basically today that they weren't allowed to do it. They are now allowed to go out and do it, but they have to do it with very strict social distancing guidance. So please do make sure, if you've got any complaints about how they're actually selling the ice cream, let us know and we'll pick it up with environmental health and the markets licensing team, because they have to have a markets license. But yes, people are allowed to buy ice creams. So, Sandra, in terms of what I'm going to plan to do going forward with these, so I will be bringing back normal physical surgeries where you can come and see me in one of the multiple venues I do it. I am planning to still do the live Q&As. I might do them slightly differently in that I might do them every 2 weeks just to reduce my kind of work burden, because if you can imagine, I was doing quite a lot of community engagement work before the lockdown. And I actually think, rightly so, I've increased what we've done, and actually I think it's been a real learning for me that actually there are other ways of reaching people. So I will continue to do these, but they may be fortnightly. And the reason for that is what I want to do is get to a position where you have a fortnightly Q&A with me. I have a fortnightly guest Q&A, so someone other than me, so you can grill someone else. I'll still have my normal surgeries once a month on normally the first Saturday of the month, so they'll still be there. Myself, Councillor Iqbal and Councillor Nash will still do our telephone surgeries, so we write out to the city centre predominantly, where it's very hard to do what we call street surgery, where we knock on your door. We do telephone surgeries with those. And something else I'm looking at doing, which I said I think earlier in the video as well, was to do on-demand video surgeries. Because again, there are a lot of my constituents that actually would love to come and have a conversation with me face to face, but actually they can't. And so what I'll be looking to do is blend everything. So you'll have your physical surgeries, you'll have the telephone surgeries where we do telephone surgeries. We'll have our normal street surgeries where we knock on people's doors on a regular basis. We'll have a fortnightly Q&A with me like this. We'll have a fortnightly Q&A with a guest to ask them some questions. And then I'll be hopefully launching those video surgeries where you can book in and you can have a face-to-face chat to me over this. So I know that's a very long, convoluted answer, but I hope that makes some sort of sense. Any update on the Spire, Phil? So, honest answer is no. The last we were told was they had to go out and do some ground surveys. I will ask that question as well. They said they want to tell us as soon as they did the ground surveys. I'm assuming the fact that they haven't been in contact probably suggests they haven't done the ground surveys yet. I think, as I said several times before, the council is incredibly serious about buying the land the Spire is on, to guarantee the future of the Spire by having a leased council housing facility there. The plan is to look at something around 55-plus-year-old flats with a preference for people who live in Hunslet or the surrounding postcodes. But until that ground survey is done, we can't say as a council whether or not it's actually feasible to build on the land. If it is feasible to build on the land, we will then advise the Church of England. The Church of England then has to do its own sort of consultation. It's a weird consultation where they literally go to the people that live in the area. Would you have any issue with Leeds City Council basically buying the land off of us to do what they're planning to do? Once they've done that consultation, if it's positive, they will then go to the council. Yeah, we're happy for you to buy the land off of us. At which point we'll then go through the procurement process of buying the land. But as I said, we are serious. We've got some serious contractors looking at the designs of the building. We've got some serious money being spent on doing the land surveys. We're in constant contact with the Church of England over this. I want that Spire's future secured, and the only way I can guarantee it's secured is for it to come into Leeds City Council ownership. And the only way I can get it into Leeds City Council ownership and have it maintained in perpetuity is to have a Leeds City Council housing facility built there, because it becomes part of the fabric of the building and therefore maintained by the housing revenue maintenance budget. So when I say I'm serious, and myself are serious about it, Councillor Nash is serious and Councillor Iqbal are serious about it, we are serious, and we've got the council to spend quite a lot of time and money. But as soon as those surveys are done, we'll have a much better answer for you. Okay, so let's have a look. So we've got about 3-4 minutes left. Does anyone have any other questions for me for in the next 3 or 4 minutes before we call it quits for this week's Q&A? You know, I can't have fixed everything in the world. So any other questions or any other comments? Because if the that's great to know, Sue. So there's been workmen there in high vis. Okay, that's a good indicator. That suggests that they're doing the land surveys, hopefully, which is good news. But I will chase that up and try and get an answer from them. We have a special, actually dedicated team. There's a team of 2 or 3 officers who are literally just working on this project in our housing growth team. So I will pick it up with them on Tuesday. Let's have a look. Is there anything else anywhere else? In terms of residence meetings, I know Hunslet Tara is doing a virtual residence meeting. To be fair, I'm going to have a conversation. I haven't done this yet because I forgot, in all honesty, to see if Hunslet Car want to do one as well. In terms of the residence forums which are run by the council, I'm, shall we say, just negotiating how we're going to do that, just to make sure it's done properly. Because there are different models of doing a residence meeting via live cast, as it were, where you just have the people like me, the other councillors and the officers on the call, and we do what we did yesterday with Hillary, where people send in questions in advance or comment on the live feed. We can have a pre-arranged one where you say you're coming and we let you in, or we can have a free-for-all where anyone can join. So I am working on that, and it is a bit of negotiation because I have to make sure that the officers feel comfortable, that my fellow councillor colleagues feel comfortable. There's also an issue with the police because the police don't like using Zoom for security reasons. So I will be looking at how we do that, but I am very keen to do, first of all, while we're in some form of lockdown, and a lot of people are going to be shielding and in lockdown even after it's released for most of us for a while. I don't want to exclude anyone from our democratic and challenge process. And actually, I think just as a matter of course, even when we do go back to face-to-face physical meetings, I actually think having the ability to live cast it on Facebook or other venues, so that people who can't get to the meeting because they've got childcare responsibilities, or they're just frail, or when it's dark they just want to go out into the dark, they can still participate in a residence meeting. So I am looking at that as well. So we've got about a minute left, so I'm going to close it for there. I'd just like to thank everyone that's put up with me again this week and to answer any questions. Please do feel free to share these videos, because I do want people to see that there is engagement, and again, it might stimulate some questions that weren't on here, and there might be people that can't come, so please feel free to share as much as you like. Again, do send in your questions in advance if you can, because I can get you some more detailed answers. Other than that, have a good extended weekend with the bank holiday. Stay safe, and I hope to see you all again in the community soon. But if we are in this for longer than we all would like to be, then I'll see you on one of these live feeds. And don't forget, you can contact me about anything, anytime, via phone, email, social media, WhatsApp, you name it. Speak to you all soon. Bye.